Okay. Good evening and welcome to the June 15th board meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. Board members, I'll entertain approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Beerbaum, can you read the purpose statement for us? Sorry, I usually give people a heads up.
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access and empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. And I will go ahead and open our public hearing for the revisions to the 2020-21 school calendar. And just for everyone to be aware of, I know we're going about this in a different order. We aren't the only school district. I learned through some board presidents that we actually were supposed to do a public hearing on our calendar, the adjustments that we made for this fall. So we're catching it up like a few others are having to, given this unique time. Did we get any feedback from the community to the office? None. And I don't see Patrick as anybody raising their hand. We have no hands raised. Alrighty, great. Then I will go ahead and close the public hearing and go ahead and turn it over to Superintendent Reisner for the COVID-19 update.
Thank you. So the first thing we wanted to give you an update on, again, as we go through this process of building our return to learn plan, just having these checkpoints with the board to talk through kind of where we're at with all of our teams and what our plans are as of today. So Dr. Hawkins, take over.
Thank you very much. So there's four main things that I want to cover with you regarding this particular update, and then I'd take any questions that you have. The first is that the state of Iowa released information today letting us know that tomorrow at 1 o'clock they will be holding an informational session about what the return to learn requirements will be in CASA. So it's nice from my perspective to finally get a sense of what does the state expect that July 1 plan to look like. So we'll get our first opportunity to look at that soon.
If I can just, I'm so sorry, if I can just jump in for 1 second, just to remind everybody, because sometimes we speak in these terms. CASA is the state system that we put our information in. So for our grants, compliancy, and other things through the Department of Education, that is the system we put our plans and different documents in.
Thank you, Superintendent Reisner. I appreciate that. I'll try to remember not to use too much lingo. The second point that I wanted to make, and you can kind of see this in the document that is attached here in Assembly, and that is that many teams have begun the process of making some decisions, and many teams are finding, you'll see in the very top box, we held a meeting with all of the teams, kind of a larger group meeting last week in order to start beginning to offer opportunities and structure times for teams to cross-collaborate. We're starting to see lots of teams that are saying, we're dealing with an issue and we think another team might be dealing with the same issue or a tangent of this issue. And so we're starting to facilitate those cross-team collaboration opportunities. You see in the top box there some different topics and questions that teams are identifying they need to collaborate with each other around. In the second box, the box on the bottom there, you're starting to see teams either submitting a link to or examples of decisions that they are starting to make around this plan. And so it would be the goal that within this next week, after learning what does the state require, and what do we believe we need as far as the level of detail for implementation, to start synthesizing the various plans that people have come together, one, in order to write the state plan, but two, and also to prepare teams to begin the process of implementation. So I'm pleased with the progress that we're making thus far. Teams are having good conversations. I've had the opportunity over the last couple of weeks to sit in on a few different teams and listen to their conversation, and they're really digging in. I'm very proud of the work that our teams are doing. The last point that I wanted to make tonight, or the last conversation around this update that I wanted to have, and again, I'm happy to answer questions, is around that proposed hybrid model. And so in order to give our teams a little bit more sense of certainty on what we mean by a hybrid, because there are multiple variations of what a hybrid could look like, we have made some decisions about that. Essentially, the model that we have landed on, again, this would be in the situation where the state has told us that only a certain percentage of students can come to school, right? Maybe the health conditions only allow a certain percentage to come. We have decided that if that were to be the case, we would run what we would call an AABB model, meaning that on Monday and Tuesday, 50% of a class or a course would report. We need to work through some details, like how do we try to honor family relationships so that the A third grader and the A seventh grader are the same families, and then work out some of those details. There's still some logistics to work out to make it the most convenient for our community. But on Monday and Tuesday, those 50% of students would come. Thursday and Friday, the other 50% of students would come. There are some caveats to this plan, and that would be that those students who have been identified as highest at risk or in most need would be able to come all 5 days if they were participating in our alternative assessment process through special education, or if their IEP team felt they needed to attend 4 days, they could. Then, of course, on Wednesday, we would be giving time for our teachers to focus on providing feedback and grading, as well as planning for the virtual learning that would be occurring for the other half of the students that weren't doing face-to-face attendance. So again, this plan was put together after consultation with the DLT members that are sitting in and have been sitting in on all of these team meetings. It was also based upon
DLT is district team leaders.
Sorry, I did it again. Thank you, Superintendent Reisner. So our district leadership team members who are sitting in on the various groups that are represented all collaborated in order to come up with this hybrid plan. And I would also tell you that there was some guidance or some research that was released recently that also helped us shape this plan that essentially points to an A-B model that occurs within a week's time frame to be the strongest model for our kids. So that was a helpful piece of research to help shape our thinking. So those are the 4 points that I wanted to make regarding the Return to Learn update. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Jeff, it's Monique. I just have 2 quick ones. I just want to clarify what you said about the hybrid model. What I heard you say was that high-risk students would perhaps come all 5 days, but students with IEP who needed it would come 4 days. Is that correct?
Close. It's close to correct. Because we would have some high-risk IEP students that we would suggest come 5 days. Those students who are participating in our alternative assessment. Then we might have other IEP students that we would suggest goes 4 days. But of course, we would hold a team meeting, and their IEP team would ultimately make that decision.
So you're thinking most 2 days, then some 4 days, and then some 5 days. So kind of 3 different groups, is that correct? And
yes.
So for the students who are on their off days, they're at home, I imagine, will they be doing work at home as well?
Yes, yep. So they would be doing asynchronous learning for the remainder of the week, and that's where we would be providing teachers that time on Wednesday in order to plan, give feedback, and assess that asynchronous learning.
And just the last quick question, you said the plan was due on July 1. Is that when you would make it available to the community, or do you need feedback from the state and modifications before you could make it available to the community?
I believe I will be able to better answer that question tomorrow after the 1 o'clock Zoom session that the DE is holding.
Jeff, one question I had. You said that that hybrid, that is one of the hybrid models that only goes into effect if our state tells us we cannot have 100% of our students in place, correct? So I just
Correct.
wanted to make that, because as you've stated in earlier meetings, there's four things. There's everybody back, there's nobody back, and then in between, this is one of those two hybrids.
That's
Hybrids
correct.
that's in
Yep. So
between, right?
this would be our plan for if the state is giving us parameters on. And again, we've built this and presented it to you tonight based on the idea of a 50-50 number from the state. Of course, at this point, nobody knows what that is going to look like. But yes, you've said that very well, President Franson.
Thank you.
And from a high level, I think it might be helpful to just remind everyone, because I know there's a ton of information coming at the community, at parents, and at the board. So just as a reminder, this plan is really to have the ability to be able to allow us to go in and out of it as seamlessly as we can, because if we are given the direction from the state that we have to go to a hybrid model or an all online model, our hours do not get waived. So if we did not have a model in place, then those days would count against our time. And then again, we also don't want students to not be engaged. So our goal is to have these options available, knowing that there is a likelihood that we could have to go in and out of different models throughout the year. And so the better we can be prepared with those models, I think really benefits our staff and our students and our parents. We also want to make sure that we're meeting needs of the families too. So one of the things that we have heard is a number of students or parents are inquiring about homeschool. And so we wanted to be able to talk through that with parents as we move forward, to say, we also will have an option for families who want to go online, if that is something that they're needing to do for reasons. We've heard a broad description of why families could be needing that, and so we want to be able to meet the needs of our learners and of our families the best that we possibly can as a district.
I just have a clarifying question. So ultimately, what we do is determined by the governor. Is that correct? So let's say they say go all in. We go all in. Is that correct? Is that right?
It is. I still think we do have some local control. What the majority of us anticipate is that the governor will most likely say we're gonna leave it up to the districts to determine what it looks like. We may get some broad parameters like operate at 50% capacity, or but again, what we have seen quite a bit of is the local control, and so at that point we would make that call. But Director Colton, it is really difficult to tell. We're hoping tomorrow we'll have a little bit more answers. That hasn't been addressed directly. We're all kind of feeling like, okay, this is where we're headed based on the information we have today. So, one of the things as a district, I think it's important to know is that we also our main priority will be protecting students. So if if we experience what's called the hot spots, as you've heard the governor mention, if we happen to be in an area that's a hot spot, my understanding at this point is that the directive could be that you close your school down if you're within that hot spot, and then that would put us into a full online learning mode. And then we might come out of that hot spot and another town could go into a hot spot. So I think that's where we're waiting on a little more direction on that, but we're anticipating that to be the case.
Thank you. That you answered my question exactly. I was wondering how much control we have, and it seems like there's a lot of unknowns, right? For it's kind of up in the air. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I noticed, Jeff, in the information that you had attached was professional development here, which I completely understand, right? This is, I mean, it's been said before, this is a different kind of teaching, right? So we're really going to have to provide some support for our teachers and staff. Are you feeling like the added time that we've looked at with the calendar is going to be able to provide the support that is needed? How are you working through that in terms of managing this long list of, I mean, just health and safety issues that was listed PD, but there's a lot of other areas, right?
Yeah, thank you. That's an insightful question. I do believe the time we've added at the beginning of the year is a step in the right direction. I do believe that if we were to be in a hybrid model, having time on Wednesdays to give staff ongoing professional development will be taken advantage of. And I do believe that after we start synthesizing all of the planning stages and we start getting a sense of what implementation would look like, it may be wise for us as a district to offer some opportunities and training yet this summer prior to the school year starting back. So that's a conversation that we need to have at the director's level and see what is feasible for us to do. But I do believe that the amount of shift in professional practice is one that we want to front load our professional development with.
I have just one question.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
I have just one question. It's a little bit of a follow-up to Jeanette's question, and this might not be something that you know the answer to, but maybe you will after tomorrow. Do we have any sense of when or how much notice we will have before they determine what we'll be doing in the fall?
No, I mean, if you remember, the governor, the superintendents came together and asked that we could please have 2 weeks notice when we were going through the initial phases of this. My hope would be that the governor would continue to honor that 2-week notice, but we have not heard any definite answer on that.
Okay, thanks.
Does the planning you're pursuing right now as a district have any engagement with, for lack of a better word, the child care providers within town? The various, I mean, I'm just thinking the model you described could be very difficult for families that might have 2 income earners in the house, and how do they handle small children, things like that?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Dr. Hawkins, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I would actually. I had the privilege of talking with Erica Peterson earlier this week. She's the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Ames, and we spoke about some of the implications of a hybrid model on potentially the structures they provide. I do know, Vice President Beerbaum, that several members, that there have been members of our community that have been invited to be on these planning teams. I would want to check with that team that's handling basic needs to see whether or not there have been any child care providers that have been a part of that team. I can't answer that directly for you other than the conversations that I've had with Erica Peterson. I do know that there's thought being put into, if we're in a hybrid model, what would that mean for childcare based on the conversations I've had, but I don't know how pervasively those conversations have occurred. if I could, maybe this would be a pertinent time to add this. One of the conversations that we've been having pretty recently is when we get a plan together, let's say circa July 1, to begin that implementation process. We think it's going to be really important, obviously, to communicate with our community what that plan looks like, both so that we can address some of those concerns that you heard Superintendent Reisner talk about. Like, well, I know I personally have heard a lot from families, like, we love the Ames Community School District and we really want to stay here, but we don't know what online learning is going to look like. So we need to get some information to our community from that regard, but also from the point that you just brought up around what might that mean for childcare. I think the most challenging, not to get too deep into this, but the most challenging part is planning for fluidity in a model where you don't know what the parameters are. So again, I don't know if 3 weeks in we're going to have to close one building for 3 days, all buildings for 2 weeks. It's very difficult to plan a fluid model for a system this large without a lot of parameters, but we're hopeful that the state will continue to give us guidance as we continue to complete our plans.
Any other questions on the return to learn before we move on to the next item?
Just wondering, have we, this might be too early on, but have we identified any potential budget needs or monetary needs in addition to what we already have budgeted?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Chris, if you want to speak to that. I mean, that goes along with kind of your committee a little bit, but your group. I can speak if you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to find the mute button. We did receive about a little over $300,000 in CARES funding that we've been talking about reserving that for to help mitigate the loss of learning from this year. So that's kind of where we're holding that. It's based on your Title I allocation, and since we're not a high free and reduced district, we didn't receive much. There are small districts that are very high free and reduced got over $1 million. So originally the state had told us that, and we still are, they gave us a special project code to track all expenses that are related to COVID-19 that we normally would not have within our budget, and that we could then go to the School Budget Review Committee and apply for spending authority, because obviously that's the big issue with most school districts. It's not necessarily the cash, it's the spending authority. And so all of us were diligently thinking about what we needed to code to those project codes. I've got codes set up for a majority of things at this point. And then we received a letter from the SBRC last week. It went to the business managers and the superintendents that basically said that if we're going to go to the SBRC for additional spending authority, we're going to have to prove that we didn't have savings elsewhere. We're going to have to show like 5 years of utility costs. We're going to have to show substitute costs. We're going to have to explain why it's something that we couldn't just absorb within our budget, and that they also are going to take into effect if it's going to affect the local taxpayer, which the only way you can get cash to spend spending authority is through the cash reserve levy. So I think as of last Thursday when that letter came out, at least my peers were a lot less optimistic about the ability to gain extra spending authority within our budget. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but that's kind of what the letter said.
Be very close to what, yeah, exactly. So that is going to be the difficulty with that. But thank you for asking that, Director Colton, because that's on our minds too, for sure. Any other questions on the Return to Learn plan update?
I have one. I know we had heard that there was some, a lot of talk about social emotional learning, and then this kind of after school thing that might or might not happen. I'm wondering if the district is planning any new programming and what that might be.
Great question. So, and I don't know, Dr. Hawkins, if you want to take that or if you would like me to.
I can speak to as far as the after school thing. I think we're talking about the after school reading program, reading and math support. And yes, we are pursuing what does research and literature tell us best about after school reading and math support, and are working on developing that plan. Happy to address that maybe in a future board update and give you some specifics. As far as the social emotional learning, I don't know, Superintendent Reisner, if you want to speak to that piece.
You bet. The social emotional learning, we are going to do our first kind of training in small groups. And really, training might not be the best word for it. Overview might be a better word. For some social emotional materials, that would be a slow rollout of those materials, meaning that we need to train first. And so that we would be working on, I think our first dip our toes in it would be, I want to say the last week of June. Our plan is to bring this to the board in a presentation. It was actually on tonight's agenda, but we felt like it would create much too long of a meeting. We also have Panorama tonight. So we wanted to move it so that we could give a little bit more time first to Panorama and then to that program. So we will be bringing it. It's not a curriculum. And so that's, for all of us in education, we always think curriculum. It's not. It's really materials and teaching strategies that our teachers would implement within the classroom. And so, yes, the research that we have been looking at says that as teachers are training in these materials, it begins to be implemented in their classroom anyway. So our goal is to have an implementation plan that we will be bringing to the board, as well as a kind of an overview of what the program is about. I know a couple of the board members already knew a little bit about it from some TED Talks that they had seen. So we'll bring that to the board. I believe we said next meeting is when that will be coming. And then that just one little piece I'd add to the after school model. It's really important to me, having been a part of districts who wrote the 20th century grants, and knowing a lot of the research behind after school models. You got to get the right one that really encompasses the community needs. And so I'm really appreciative. I have two community groups that are working with me on that. Both ARC and ASAT are helping provide some research, along with some other people at the state providing some research around that as we begin to develop that program.
Would that after school program also be AABB, or would it be 5 days or?
Great question. There's research behind the amount of hours that are recommended. We haven't got that deep into it, to be very honest. So we're trying to first get that return to learn plan solidified and then move on. And that's the very next piece. So great question. Thank you. Any other questions on return to learn? Okay. We will move to fan expectations. So I asked Athletic Director Johnston if he could come and provide a little bit of information regarding what the expectations for fans at baseball and softball will be. If you remember, last meeting, we talked about what the requirements and restrictions were going to be for players. And then we moved on to, okay, what do we need to comply with for our fans? So I will turn it over.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Reisner. Glad to be on board tonight to give you an update. We're 2 weeks in to this, and it's been going pretty well. I guess our biggest concerns as coaches and myself and my assistant AD are the social distance challenges that our kids are still just really struggling with. They think they're invincible, and they want to be kids and they want to be close to each other. So that's just a constant challenge. It's not going to go away. But other than that, they've been very compliant on everything else. They've been really mature about this, and we've had some good talks about the importance of it and things like that. So we've got this week of practices, and then we will begin games next week. Now, in preparation for games next week, starting next Monday, we had a big parent meeting this past Saturday morning, just 2 days ago here at our facility. And we had parents of both programs come in. I wanted them to see how we've got things set up and what the expectations are for potentially how we're going to take tickets and how they're going to sit in the bleachers and where they're going to sit out around the fence. We have markings out on the perimeter of our fields. We talked about concession stands or a lack of, how many times we're going to clean the restrooms and things like that. So we had very good attendance Saturday morning with both programs. We talked about our limitations that we have, and that's a CIML rule that we will set our teams at 28, which will allow each player a chance to have 2 tickets to get their immediate family in. We started there first as a group to make sure they're covered, their parents, and then we've got a little bit of flexibility as we move into the games, and then especially the second game of a doubleheader. If some families or individuals get up and leave, we can allow more people in. We've also got that kind of gray area of an individual that may have a split family, divorced family, things like that. We've got a couple of medical needs out there as far as supervision of a sibling and things like that. So those are trickling to my desk, and we've got a little bit of wiggle room to accommodate as many as we can. But I guess the good thing is games started today across the state. We have 3 schools that just today have had to stop play and go into quarantine for 14 days, 3 small rural schools, 2 softball, 1 baseball. So I think we're still walking on eggshells and hoping that Ames stays safe. We're not one of those hot spots, and our parents did a very good job of being receptive, and we had good discussion with some of them individually after Saturday morning. And I just hope that kind of follows through next Monday when we start welcoming fans to our facility here. And I just wanted to finish up with a thank you. We have an outstanding facility here. And the challenges are a little bit less for me with our bleachers and the number of restroom stalls we have and where our attendance gates are and our shelters and things like that. So I'm very thankful that I don't have some of the challenges that some other schools are having right now with smaller venues, outdated venues, things like that. So thank you for our vision and our support of our athletic facilities.
Any questions for Judge on that? Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
And then the last and final item on COVID, the commencement update. Dr. Hawkins. Okay, he's had computer issues, so I'm going to double check and see if I can take over if need be. Patrick, do you see him on there? Okay. It's okay, you can open the document, I can talk through it.
He's back in the participants, Patrick.
Oh. Did you hear that, Patrick? He's in the participants? Okay. So until he's back on, I can take over. So we have.
I apologize. I am here. Again, it logged me off really quick, but I'm back. But Superintendent Reisner, if you'd like to talk about it, please feel free. Otherwise, I'm happy to go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So again, just to give a quick update around commencement. First of all, really excited, really appreciative of the cooperation that it's taken between Iowa State University, our high school team of people planning, as well as the collaboration that other, like our Story County Health Department has offered. So ceremony to begin at 1 o'clock this coming Sunday. A little bit of an update from the information that you see here. Staff will be allowed to report at 11. Parents and students both be allowed to arrive at 11:30. So a little bit of an update to the information. There's been some ongoing back and forth planning since the time that this.
And he's off again. So I can go ahead and finish up. So the graduating class is about 318 students. I believe at this time we have 265-ish that are confirmed and will be attending. One of the things that I think is important to note, we will have a live stream going, so families who aren't comfortable attending, the student's name will still be announced, and the family, the student, can watch it live streamed in their home, as well as we'll have it recorded. ISU will be helping us with, or they will be doing the recording. They have great systems set up, and so I want to reassure families that if they aren't able to attend or feel unsafe attending, that there will be that option for them. The students will be seated on the floor and will have social distance. The stage will be set up with social distancing. I appreciate the board getting back to me. We wanted to make sure that we gave the board an option as well, and so there will be an area for board members to be social distance, not on the stage, because the stage is only so big. So appreciate those of you responding back to me with your intent. Masks will be encouraged to be worn. We're hoping we will have masks there to hand out. But if people have their own masks, we encourage them to wear that and bring that. But again, we'll have masks and hand sanitizer there as well. I am just reading down the list to see if there's anything I forgot. Oh, I did forget. There'll be a large screen in the Coliseum. So people can also sit in the upper sections to see that better. I think that's the main points of any questions around the ceremony. I'll wait just a minute. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Superintendent Reisner, Dr. Hawkins, Judge Johnston, all of those of you that provided us with that COVID-19 update. Super helpful for us to understand all of the work that you are going through and charting our path forward in this very unique time. I will go ahead and read our statement regarding public comments, which follow each of our discussion items, as well as our public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first discussion item this evening is the Panorama Survey update.
So just want to apologize to the board and to Superintendent Reisner for the lack of being available for the commencement update conversation. Apparently, my children didn't believe me when I asked them to stay off the internet after 6:30. I think we've got that corrected. And again, I apologize sincerely. Thank you, Superintendent Reisner, for covering that for me. Okay, so again, I will attempt to give a very informative but also succinct presentation here around our Panorama survey. But I'm really excited to be able to share that survey with you. Patrick, if you wouldn't mind clicking through that slideshow, that's great. Thank you. And we're just going to scroll through those pages. You can see our agenda today is primarily focused around the parts of Panorama that are an overview of our district goals. As you may recall, we've been doing some work as a district to identify goals for the district, and some of those goals are written around the Panorama survey. And so I'm going to highlight those particular areas for the board tonight. I want to provide some information around the specific survey topics and the response rates that we got from this most recent administration of the survey, share with you some survey insights that will probably be the most meaty part of the presentation, and then talk with you briefly about next steps. So if we were to look, if you could
I jump in for 1 second, real quick, just so you the board is aware? We will do a deeper dive. I know it says that on there, but just in case you were wondering, we'll do a deeper dive at our board retreat or board work session this summer, or I think it's in August. So, but we did want to get this out to you. I know that several of you had asked about it, and we also wanted to be able to show you metrics around those goals.
Thank you, Superintendent Reisner. And again, thanks for covering that part of the meeting for me. Okay, so if we'd scroll one more slide, I want to look at the specific goals. I wanted to remind the board of the wording of those specific goals that draw us back to the Panorama survey. So again, as you probably recall, in our work sessions, we went through drafting the wording of our district goals to be in SMART goal format. So we were very specific about the measurement tool that we had. And as you can see highlighted in bold there, we've identified specific parts of the Panorama survey as things that we want to draw back to in order to measure goals for both priorities 3, 4, and 5. So if we scroll to the next slide, what you'll see there is some data points that as a district we want to continue to track. Those data points that are highlighted in orange, you will see are the data points that relate to the district goals. While some of the progress is slight progress, I am excited to show you that in all of the areas in which there would be a district goal, we have made some progress with our Panorama survey results. Obviously, the most progress is made from staff's response to feedback and coaching, with 13 gained, 13% of staff responding at a higher level, and then others you see are more minimal gain. But I think it's an encouraging sign that we're seeing positive growth, particularly in all of the district goal related areas. And if you scroll a little bit more, perfect. Thank you very much, Patrick. And I appreciate your help navigating this, Patrick. So who we surveyed and what we asked of each of those groups is highlighted for you in this slide. I don't necessarily intend to read all of this for you, but again, you'll see here that what's bolded is related specifically to the goal areas. I will also tell you that what you'll see under the student section, there was a new survey that Panorama developed this year about diversity and inclusion, and we did choose to participate in that survey. And so the survey that was given to our 6 through 12 students was a slightly different survey than what they were administered last year, because we want to begin including questions about diversity and inclusion. Again, so that kind of outlines the various topics that are asked of each group. And again,
and just as a add-in on that diversity and inclusion, Dr. Jones also made sure to take a good look at those and give feedback with Panorama before we administered those. And I point that out only because I just want the board to know how much we all appreciate and benefit from his position. And I know that was a new position that we added last year. I'm thankful for the equity committee and the work that they did around gaining the the insight on what that position might look like and the need for it. And again, for the board supporting that, it's been really critical to all of the work that we've done this year.
Thank you, Superintendent Reisner. I appreciate that. Yes, there were actually a few different versions of sets of questions, and Dr. Jones did a great job of helping us identify the specific questions that would be of highest leverage for our system. So appreciated his help in that. The next slide really goes to address the concept of response rates. I would remind the board at this stage of the process that we were in the middle of administration of the Panorama Survey when school closure occurred due to COVID-19. We did leave the survey window open and had sent a couple emails out letting people know that that was open and they could still participate. You can see we had 694 families. That we had about 1,200 families last year. I know Superintendent Reisner addressed in an earlier board meeting, it was kind of disappointing because we'd had some very specific strategies where we were going to go out and do some really good outreach work in order to pull in our community for this survey, and some of those things were just not possible with the health conditions at the time. The other thing you might notice, the 612 student participation is relatively low. They were planning on administering this to the high school students when they got back, and so that the student voice at the secondary mostly represents our middle school students. I will say we saw about a 12% increase in staff participation. So that was nice to see some greater staff participation in the process. The next series of slides really go into each of those areas, each of those orange bolded district goals. I wanted to give you a little bit of the data. Again, Superintendent Reisner has indicated that we'll do a deeper dive and really start getting you to dig into it, but I wanted to provide you a little bit of depth to the data themselves. Again, I appreciate like the overview that we're seeing growth in each area, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper with the board tonight. So one of those goal areas is, of course, is the sense of belonging of our students. And you can see that there was an increase in sense of belonging from 38% to 41%. You can also see based on that bell-shaped curve, we're still not at a national average or at or above a national average when it comes to this type of question. But if you scroll, Patrick. Perfect.
And just, oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
Great. Keep going.
You're going to go there. Nope, you're good. You're going there.
Yes, great. So if you when we do our deep dive, what you'll see is that each topic area, the broad area of school belonging is called a topic, and each topic is comprised of several questions. And so on many of the slides here tonight, I've showed you where are we at with the topic, but then what is some information that we can get if we dig deeper into the question level. And that's what this slide shows, is that the biggest positive improvement for our 612 students is that they feel people at their school are understanding them better than they did last year. Again, that's up 7% of positive response points from where it was last year. I don't know, Superintendent Reisner, if that addressed what you wanted to. Okay. Classroom belonging is how that concept is categorized for our elementary students. Again, school belonging secondary, classroom belonging elementary. You can see there that, again, we are seeing a very slight increase from 63 to 64. But again, as you can also see based on that bell curve, we are above the national average for where we're at with classroom belonging. And then, Patrick, if you scroll one further, you can see that grade, just like our 612 students, our 3-5 students are also feeling that they are understood better than they were last year. Again, that's up 5 points. I don't know if it's better to pause in between or if you just want me to keep going.
I think I would just keep going because I can see people writing notes, and so they're probably, if there is a question, they'll probably come back to it.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, the next goal area, again, going back to our district goals, is around classroom engagement. You can see that our 3-5 saw an increase in that score by 3%. And again, that's above the national norm. And as far as a further insight into that specific topic, Patrick, if you'd scroll one more slide. is that they especially feel positive about the way that they're engaged when it comes to classroom activities. That's a particular area of strength. And of note, I would say this is probably a good opportunity to publicly give thanks to our Panorama representative, Samantha Seeker, who assisted me pretty significantly in putting together the presentation for tonight, because I wouldn't have known this last piece of data without her help. That scoring a 74 on this question is positively impacting that whole topic by 60% of that topic. So it's a significantly weighted question, if you will. The next insight is around how teachers and staff are feeling about coaching and feedback. And you can see that there's been a rise in both, right? Teacher perception of coaching and feedback is positively, is going up a positive 4 points. And staff perception actually has gone up a positive 13 points. So people are feeling better about the feedback, and in particular, it was already an area of strength, but staff have found the feedback being provided to be even more useful than it was last year. Again, a raise in 19 points in that particular question. And as far as the question, how thorough is the feedback that we receive? Again, we're seeing our teachers. That's their biggest area of improvement. That the question that influenced that growth from 19 to 23 the most was staff feeling that the thoroughness of their feedback was effective for them. Next, you can see around the concept of family engagement. This would have been on the family survey. We see that we're right at around that 20% of our parents responding positively, which I have to be honest, every time I review this, doesn't feel great. And then I look at that curve and realize we're actually doing pretty decently. And that's honestly what Samantha keeps reminding me of well, but it doesn't just, personally, it doesn't feel great when I review the data and it shows that 20% or roughly 20% of our families feel connected to the school. But that is our data.
And I would think that would be an area that we would continue to want to have, we would want to continue to have goals around, because even if we're well above the national average or above the national average, to me, 19% isn't really where we want to be. So,
again, as a reminder, again, this is it's a great spot to be in, where we saw growth in all areas. So we did see growth in this area as well, which is great. But I wholeheartedly agree with Superintendent Reisner that this would be one we'd want to track for quite some time. In particular, when it comes to family engagement, our largest area of growth was in the area of family members visiting the schools. People saying that they were frequenting our schools, coming into them.
I think one of the things to note on that, I don't want to leave this opportunity missed on this because it's so important. We have done a lot of work this year around the piece of being able to have families enter our buildings that may not have been able to before. So I'm thankful to the community. They have the community ID card that has allowed families to come into schools. Even if they didn't have a driver's license, we can have that community ID card, and some other strategies that we've had for creating that welcoming space and being able to honor our parents and families coming in. So I just think it's a great thing that we're working hard and continue to work hard on that piece.
All right, our next, I've got two more goals and two more areas that I want to highlight for the board. Our next insight is around the concept of family communication. And this is interesting. This is the one area of our goals that is written around a question as opposed to being written around a topic. So normally I'm showing you that bell curve and seeing where we landed. Well, this goal is actually written around at that question level. And you can see that this question grew by a positive 4 points as reported by our family. That less of a barrier is families feeling unsure about how to communicate with their schools. So families are feeling an increase in their positive notion around how to communicate with the school, which is great. And then the last one is family school fit. And again, here you can see that we are growing. we grew by 3% overall in this topic, and that we are at a 61% of our respondents are responding positively, but we're still not at that national norm either. This would be another area where it would be nice to see us continue to grow to at least, if not better than, that national norm. But we are growing. And then this last slide here, Patrick, around that, with all questions except for one, and that one, I believe, was a 0. It was a null. There was no growth, but no loss either. With all questions within that topic area, we saw a positive growth. And so I put a couple of example questions in the amount of growth we saw in those. So again, I think it's important to reiterate that we'll be doing a deeper dive into this data where it'll be kind of live. You'll be able to click into it. We'll be able to dig deeply and answer questions, but wanted to kind of highlight some of that data for you. I've got just a little bit more, and then certainly we'll open it up to questions. If you'd scroll just a little bit further, Patrick. Our next steps, as we have talked about already, that there is a link that we will push out to our community. One of the commitments that I feel like I personally made in our SIAC meetings earlier this year was that we would not delay the release of the data. And so we want to get that out yet to people this spring, if at all possible. So our plan is to release this link to our community next week on the 23rd. Obviously, this is a public meeting. These are public documents. This link is live. So if you go to it now, it is, in essence, I suppose, released. You as a board could go click on this. This is the link that our families will get in order for them to be able to dig into our data. But we'll do a kind of a public marketing of the release of that data next Monday, so that our community knows that it's out there. And we'll encourage them to interact with it. And then we've already addressed a couple of the last next step slides, and that is a board retreat in August where we can do a deeper dive. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the community might have or the board might have, and I will wrap it up now just by asking if there's any questions I can answer over the presentation.
And just one thing to add, the principals have all seen this and they've dug much deeper. I think I mentioned in my update, maybe last meeting or the meeting before, that we did a deep dive with the principals, and Panorama staff led us in that, and they did a phenomenal job. And then, so principals have seen it, as have teachers. So they have shared it with their staff as well. Correct, Dr. Hawkins?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, that we've shared it with staff. I've actually had some staff email back and thank us for the release and being able to dig in and being able to look at it. Again, as a credit to Panorama, they've done a really nice job of preparing us to be better participants, if you will. I'm struggling to come up with the right word, which is rare for me, but they've really armed us with the ability to know and dig into our data better. So I appreciate our partnership with them. Our principals have dug in, our teachers are digging in, and next week we will release that data so that our community can dig in as well.
Do we have the ability to compare against partner districts instead of just against national data?
I can certainly ask that question of our providers. I'm not aware that we do. The only data that I've ever had access to or they've ever spoken with me about is national comparisons.
When you say partner districts, who would you be thinking of?
Partner is the wrong word. Peer districts is really what I meant more. So,
Okay.
you know, like other districts similar size within the Midwest or within Iowa, something like that.
The best that I could give you right now is, Patrick, could you scroll up to one of those questions where yeah, perfect, right there. Okay, so when we're looking at this slide and we're seeing that we're below that national norm, you see on the far right-hand side where it says school setting, all urban, non-urban, elementary, middle, high, you see those columns there? When we have that live data, we can click on those links, and that national normed curve actually will adjust and shift based upon whether we choose a a low SES identified district or a high school or a middle school. So there's a little bit of comparison that we can do that way, Vice President Beerbaum, but there is not an option for us to say, okay, we want to look at these 5 neighboring districts and see how we compare there. Not that I'm aware of, but I can pursue that question.
Then the other question I had is, you mentioned at the beginning the number of families we had fill it out, and we didn't have the ability to go push out as much as we were hoping to. Do we know how it compares with the numbers of families, demographics from last year? Like,
yes.
Really what I'm getting at is if we have an increase in some of the numbers simply because we didn't reach the families that maybe we did last year that were having problems, or do we know?
Well, I don't know that I would hop to that inference, but I can tell you mathematically, yes. Last year we had right around 1,200 families participate, and this year we had right around 700. So we definitely saw a decrease in participation. Whether or not that who those 500 that I don't know that I could speak to right now, whether that influenced a positive or influence in the data, but we definitely did see a difference in that response rate.
And we can explore those questions and try, if possible, to get answers for those by the work session. One of them, I don't think we'll be able to look at other districts, neighboring districts. I don't think we will, but we'll definitely explore that. But the demographics that you're talking about, I think we should be able to pull that. So that should be something we can do.
Great. No, I love the data and we're getting together and comparing it, but the whole COVID quarantine stuff, of course, got us all where we didn't get as much data as we wanted. So.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, really loose, and so Superintendent Reisner, you cut me off if you want to, but one of the things that we've talked about, again, very surface level, is there wouldn't be any reason that we only have to administer the Panorama survey one time a year. And so, again, some pretty surface level conversation has been whether or not we would be interested in administering this survey maybe in the fall at some point, and then again in the spring at some point next year, to see if we could get a better sense of response from our community and not waiting necessarily till next spring to get a more full data set.
And sometimes that's helpful, especially in the classroom data, where you're looking at sense of belonging. You certainly don't want to see a stronger sense of belonging right at the start of school that declines over the year. So that can be good data to drill down to the classroom level for teachers to use to guide practices. But we also know we're all living in an era of, surveys for everything imaginable. So we don't want to overburden our community and our families, but we definitely use these, and I hope the community sees that we use these to really set goals and monitor our progress and how we're doing.
I have a real quick question. You said that you didn't have data from the high school students because you said that you were going to administer it after spring break, and then of course school didn't go back. Was there any thought to send a link out to high school students to complete, or that's not possible, or?
It is possible. I could double check with Mr. Carrico as to whether or not that link was sent out. We did have some high school students respond. So some high school students did take the survey. Unfortunately, not enough students took the survey in order to produce a valid data set. And so Panorama ultimately, like, I can log in and see that students took the survey, but they did not include those results because they didn't. It didn't meet their threshold for valid data release.
So by saying that, so then all of these screens that we see, the 6th through 12th, that is just the middle school. They didn't even factor in the high school answers, or are those few that took it included in that 6-12?
I will double check with Panorama. I believe the answer is that it is just representing our middle school students. The high school students are not factored in.
Okay.
Would there be a way to make that clear before we put this out into our community, just so we're not misleading people?
Yeah, you bet. We can make sure that, I appreciate that suggestion. We can make sure that the verbiage around that release makes it very clear that the secondary student data is representative of our middle school students.
And we'll double check that, because it actually, when I was flipping through on a different, during the whole set, the numbers were different for the high school. So I do think they might be factored in, but we'll double check that.
And similarly, if they aren't factored in, it'd be good to know, are the high school numbers factored in for last year for the comparison, because we wouldn't want to see a comparison where previously we had high school and middle school, and now we just have middle school.
And the answer to that is yes, most definitely the high school students' answers are factored into the data set last year, without a doubt.
And my remembering is they had a very, very low rate of participation at the secondary last year. And so, Patrick, you may remember, but something happened and it didn't go to they didn't get it in the classes they were supposed to get it, or something. I know we had a better plan in place this year, but unfortunately.
I remember that too, Jenny, that you didn't have a very big data set. Maybe that's why you're going to do it differently this year instead of sending out the link to the student.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering if it got sent out anyway.
Yeah, we did talk about it. One of the things we did talk about at some of my superintendent meetings was the difficulty, not just with surveys. There was a couple other things that we wanted students to fill out as a Story County superintendent group, and getting students to do it in their own home and not being, I guess this is going to sound wrong, but forced to do it in a classroom setting. They have the option of not doing it. And so that we haven't yet figured how to make that happen, but hopefully next year we'll be able to have that, because I know we were going to embed it in a class and everybody was going to take it. And then the other thing is, I want to make sure that all of our staff is taking it too. So I think the participation rate was maybe was it 68 or 70%?
68%. Yeah.
And that should be, we should be in the 95 range. So again, COVID hit, but we don't want to use that as an excuse to not grow either. So
is it likely that the high school staff then also didn't take it in the high numbers due to the same thing, or do you know was there a specific area of the staff that didn't take it?
I'd be happy to get that information to you. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can log into the tool and see the participation rate by building. I'd be more than happy to get that to you.
And I think I know I probably have looked at it, but it's not coming to me, so I apologize for that. Any other questions on Panorama? Again, this isn't your only chance to look at it. We'll definitely spend more time on this.
And that was something I was going to add, that I appreciate that you've presented this snapshot of it to provide all of us an opportunity to really start thinking through what might be those additional questions we have. I think it would be beneficial for staff as you think through those questions, if you can get those to Superintendent Reisner to help them as they do their preparation for our retreat in August, as we kind of think through, and we can probably push this out to the board again maybe in July as a refresher that this is coming. These are some things that we want you to review again. August seems like a long ways away, even though it isn't really that long away.
And we'll make sure to resend the link so you can look at, like in July, late July, so that you can look deeper too. Besides, we just wanted to show you tonight in relation to the board goal or the district goals that we had set, but there's for sure a lot more information obviously in there that you'll be wanting to look at. So
Yeah, I would anticipate that as you access that live link that's embedded within the presentation, you may have additional questions than what you had tonight. I'm going to guess you will, which is great. And so we would love to be in the best position to make our deep dive as meaningful as possible. So.
And I think Superintendent Reisner, I recalled in our conversations, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but there was going to be some, not maybe training is too heavy of a word, but some support provided to board members through data interpretation, especially through an inclusion and equity lens and supporting as we're looking through the data and better understanding the information you're going to provide for us.
Yes, Dr. Hawkins, that question is around Panorama, similar to what they did with our administrators.
Yes, I've been working with them to help prepare, and that's where I think having the questions that the board really wants to dive in can help us even target that session specifically to make sure that we really dig into the areas the board wants to dig into. But yes, Panorama is preparing to help provide that level of training and support to make that work session, again, the most fruitful for the board.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Just wanted the board to be aware that is coming as a support. So, any other questions on the Panorama survey update? I don't see any of you moving towards your mute button, so I will go ahead and open the any members from the public that would like to make comments. As a reminder, just raise your hand. Patrick, I have it up, but please let me know if you see anybody raising their hand. Okay, thank you. Angela Shaw, go ahead and give us your give us your name and address, and then follow with comments.
Yes, Angela Shaw, 5411 Tennessee Street. And my question is, I see averages are favorable, but my more specific question is, what is the standard deviation on here and what is the range within these? And then my second question to this data is, how else is this going to be broken down further by grades and all of that to have a better understanding, or by even schools to have a better understanding of these data points? My third question would be, we've talked a lot, or I've talked a lot about significance. And so I see like 1 and 2 points. So what statistical analysis is being done to show, is it statistically improved, or if these just minor with the standard deviation do not count as any change or actually below change? So those are my comments.
Thank you, Angela. We'll make sure that staff have those 3 questions or comments, and hoping them as they're preparing the information for us. Anybody else from the public have a comment or question? All right. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you for verifying that. All right, we will go ahead and move on to board committee updates. Any updates from the board? And I think the only one is facilities, and Alan was unable to be at the meeting, so I volunteered to provide the update. As you see in the minutes, I want to just highlight some things. Obviously, we received our new Ames High construction update. As you see in there, there was some of the progress was slowed a bit in May due to the wet and rainy conditions, but they do not believe that will impact the overall schedule at this point. Thought it would be important for the community to be aware that the bike path to Furman Aquatic Center has reopened. I think we're seeing some of the, with school being closed in March, it provided an opportunity for a construction team to move forward in isolating some areas and get some of the work further along in terms of the southern parking lot there, and providing some opportunities for them to move forward with some of those things. Jerry provided an update on the Mitchell Elementary construction, and just a real brief highlight of that is provided in the minutes. Also wanted you to be aware that the committee discussed with him a submission of a counteroffer for the cell tower update. And so we will be waiting to see what comes from the information that Jerry has sent back to the American Tower Corps. The Pole Prairie, that's kind of been a conversation that's kind of come and gone. We did, as a committee, discussed we won't be recommending any development of any policy for the board regarding it. In discussions with Jerry, as he has consulted with legal counsel, it really is a matter of drafting a 28E agreement for the management of the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. So he's going to be working on that, and that will be coming back to us. Just as a reminder, the management agreement that we had with the Nature Conservancy, the 50-year agreement, expired last September. So Jerry has been working on this and has identified Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation to help us with that. The Facilities Committee, we did identify that we will continue to meet at 11:30 the Wednesday following the board's first regular meeting of each month. So that's in the minutes, but it will also be in our calendars. Then the other thing that we talked about, two things, sorry. One of the conversations we had was about how the generous donation from the Harrison and Brittany Barnes Fund will be reflected in our change orders, because as you notice, it increases our project budget, and so, but it's reflected in change orders, but it's a change order that is covered by the donation. And so the staff was going to have some conversation about that, so that it's clear when folks see that. I mean, that's a big change order, and so wanting to make sure that everybody it's very clear on how that's reflected. And then the last thing that we talked about was when we bring change orders. So if you look on your agenda later on this evening, there are 4 change orders that will be coming. And as a board, we all get our monthly updates from Story Construction, which we really appreciate, and it kind of lays out all of the change orders that are coming. In the past, as the chair of the meeting, I've asked Jerry to come up and highlight those. I, at this time, don't plan to ask him to come up and speak on them. What he is discussing those at the committee level. If there are questions when you read through the board documents in preparation for the meeting, please, when those action items come, please feel free to ask those questions. But we're feeling like we're finding that I'm asking Jerry to come up to discuss the change order, but he's saying what's in the board documents. And so if you'll just make sure that you read those documents and then be prepared if you have any questions, we thought that might be just a little bit more of an efficient manner to run through these action items, because we will continue to have change orders, as you can see, most meetings. So any questions about the Facilities Committee, whether for myself or Michelle, if you want to add anything that I missed, please do. Any questions for the Facilities Committee? I am seeing none. Any comments from the public on board, any other board committee updates?
Yeah, I just want to provide a quick correction for the Policy Committee. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 7th at noon rather than the 9th.
Thank you for providing that clarification. We appreciate that. Any other things on board committees? Seeing none. Any comments from the public on the board committee update? Patrick? Oh, okay, thank you. That's what I thought. All righty, we will go ahead and move on to the public forum. Anyone from the public that would like to speak this evening? Raise your hand as before, and we will call on you. And it looks like I will go by what's in order on mine. Anita Rollins, if you want to go ahead and give her permission, and you can go ahead and speak, Anita.
Thank you. This is Anita Rollins, 3714 Woodland Street. It is with pride and passionately that I recommend naming the gymnasium and court of the new high school in honor of Ames High alum Harrison Barnes. As a community member, I am incredibly proud of Mr. Barnes and believe that his accomplishments and character make this naming a point of pride for our school district. This most recent gift to the district is consistent with the character of a young man that I've watched grow up in our community. He has always been kind, sensitive, and hardworking. He demonstrated his ability both on high school basketball courts and in AP classes. Since joining the National Basketball Association, Mr. Barnes has used his time and resources to continue to make an impact in the communities where he has lived. This gift to the Ames School District of nearly $200,000 through the Harrison and Brittany Barnes Community Foundation is just the latest in a long list of investments the Barnes have made in Ames to benefit its youth and citizens. This type of role model is what all of our students and community members need. I enthusiastically support the naming of the new gymnasium and court after Mr. Barnes. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita, for sharing your thoughts with us. Angela Shaw.
Hello, Angela Shaw, 5411 Tennessee Street. One thing that the board always points to is priority for the district. And priority number one is educational equity and improvement. And over the past 5 years, I've watched as the community provides donations and investments. But today I am here in support of Harrison Barnes being named for the gymnasium. He is committed to equity within education and improvement. He is committed to literacy for K to 12. With his summer reading program, he has provided thousands of your students within the district the opportunity to improve their literacy level so that they can be better in the classroom. His partnerships with the Ames Public Library also, and the rapid donations to programs there also have supported the Ames Community School District. With the Boys and Girls Club, who are regular attendees at the school board meetings, he is supporting there, making sure that tutors are available, and once again, our students are supported after hours, and thus having educational equity. Harrison Barnes is a role model. He's a role model to our student athletes because in addition to all of his work in the community, he has had a lot of awards for his character within the NBA. In addition, he's a role model to all of our students, and he is encouraging other students as they go out and they're successful to come back and give. So today, I want to give my support towards Harrison Barnes being named for the gymnasium because his character and him being a role model is outnumbered by so many in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, for sharing your thoughts with us this evening. Any others for the public forum? I don't know who it is. I see an email. So kennis@iastate.edu if you want to go ahead and speak.
Hello. Hi there. This is Audrey Kennis, 3415 Emerald Drive. I too would like to express my support for the Ames High Gymnasium to be named after Harrison Barnes. I believe the others who have already spoke, extraordinarily about his commitment to the community. But I also think it's important for us to recognize, as well as his athletic ability and what he has done to give the Ames community tremendous recognition nationally. And so him leading us in 2 consecutive state titles, I think is something that also needs to not only be recognized, but to be celebrated. And I think it's a smart strategic move on behalf of the Ames Community School District to be affiliated with that. And so to have Harrison Barnes and the history of what he has contributed within the field of sports as well as education and what he has given back to the community single-handedly is above and beyond. So I too would like to support that name recognition for the Ames High Gymnasium. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, for sharing your thoughts with us. And anyone else, if you'll go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, thank you to our members of our public for sharing their thoughts with us this evening. I'll move us to our consent agenda and I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent items as presented.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Benkin. Superintendent Reisner? You're on mute.
This is why I never mute, because then I forget to unmute. So I usually stay on. I just wanted to point out, normally I read all of the gifts to the district, but in the kind of just the essence of this giving, I wanted to make sure we just scrolled this list rather than have me read all of them. It is very lengthy, and I think it just speaks volumes. All of these for our Hope Pantry and outstanding lunch balances. It's just such a testament to this community and to the commitment to our kids and our schools. So I wanted to make sure, rather than reading it, that we scrolled through that and recognized just the power of giving and what an amazing community we live in.
Thank
So
you,
I won't read them, but they are there.
They are there. Yes, thank you very much for providing us the opportunity to see the long list of individuals that are really supporting our families. It's been moved by Perez, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Passes 7-0. First agenda item, first action item is the naming of the new Ames High School gymnasium and court.
I move the board waive policy 802.4 and name the competitive gym and court at new Ames High School the Harrison Barnes Gymnasium and Court.
Second.
It's been moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Perez. Discussion.
Well, I obviously this is a recommendation that I'm bringing to you, and I would say I'm honored to bring this to you. The power that we've talked about, that giving back, and the example that sets. My voice is crackly because it's just. I would say this as a superintendent. It's rare that you get the opportunity to make a recommendation for naming a facility, and especially with somebody of this caliber and just what he represents on and off of the court. It's just incredible. So it is my honor to bring this recommendation, and I so appreciate the people that have come forward and supported. We originally, as we were talking about the building of this gymnasium and what an incredible place this will be, Harrison's name was at the top of our list. And so what we've done since then is, work with Harrison and Brittany and how, this would go through the board process and what that would look like. We've worked with the attorneys and making sure that we do this in a way that's legal, and so I can sit here tonight and say that it's all legal, that we've gone through the process. We've, if you'll, and I don't, I can't scroll myself, but I think the attachment's there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the attachment's there.
Yep.
Within that attachment, we put in the community members that we were in contact with. We've gotten quite a few that have contacted us by email. We've added in there statements from people. It's a beautiful document. I commend Eric. He just did a fabulous job, and it's gorgeous. And so, yeah, it's my honor and just a privilege to recommend the naming of the gymnasium in his honor.
Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Next item, the new Ames High School change order number 5 to bid package 5-1.
I move the board approve change order number 5 to Core Structural Services LLC in the amount of an addition of $42,992 for bid package number 05-1 concrete foundations, precast and steel for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Lynn Kitis, seconded by Colton. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Next item, change order number 3 to bid package 6-1.
I move the board approve change order number 3 to Landsync Construction, Inc. in the amount of an addition of $11,384 for bid package number 06-1, general construction for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Shields Cook, seconded by Benkin. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Change order number 1 to bid package 8-1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Ford Metro, Inc. in the amount of an addition of $786 for bid package number 08-1, aluminum and glazing for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Shields Cook, seconded by Lynn Kitis. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item E, change order number 5 to bid package 26-1.
I move the board approve change order number 5 to Tri-City Electric Company of Iowa in the amount of a deduction of $930 for bid package number 26-1, electrical for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Colton. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. All right, moving on to items from the board. Anybody have anything? Well, I'm going to make 2 comments. The first one I want to comment on, and I said it up there at the beginning, but I really think that it's worthy of a second mention. But the list of our gifts, when Superintendent Reisner called me earlier today and said, well, we usually read them all, but the very long list that we had, I think that that is such a demonstration of the way that our community has come together to take care of our students and providing some meals during this very difficult time. So just really want to thank all of our community members, big and small. There's lots of different donations there. The district, thank you for your work in providing the opportunity for families to push their leftover lunch funds into the Hope Pantry as donations, because you provided that vehicle for us to be able to make those donations. I also want to thank the staff on all of their work in providing us the opportunity to recognize one of our graduates tonight. I appreciate the public coming and sharing their thoughts on the opportunity for us to name the gymnasium and court after Harrison Barnes. Harrison, I don't know you, but you make me very proud. So thank you for representing our community across this country and probably across this world and all you're doing, because I personally love it when I hear someone talk about all of your athletic accomplishments and talk about you being an AP student and the whole package you have been. So thank you for representing us so well out there. Any items from the superintendent?
Okay, I'm off mute. Just a couple. I just wanted to update the board, the return to learn, our return to work plan at the district level. Thought it might be helpful to share. We will have our enrollment person back in the office full time. And the way that we are going to do that is to have families either call ahead or they come to the school and or to the district office, and on the door will be posted the phone number, and they'll call so that we limit the number of people coming into the office, and we'll have them wait until it's safe to have them come in. We'll have hand sanitizer and masks available that we'll give families, but wanted to be able to reopen that portion because we understand that not everybody can go online, and much easier for people sometimes to come in. So that will be open. We will continue to have our business office open at least part of the day, and then we'll have directors coming kind of in and out, but primarily keeping the office closed, the district office closed for the month of July, and continuing the work from home model that we have going on. Because, as I've said all along, and I'm going to say it again, our goal is to be back full force in the fall, and so we want to be ready to go in August. And what we will do is return full-time in August, the first week of August at the district level, back to the building, but limited the month of July. So any questions from the board on that? Okay. The last thing on my list that I really wanted to talk about was just a follow-up to the letter that I had sent out to families regarding the race-based threats and intimidation. I wanted to just provide a quick follow-up to that and reiterate that we will not in Ames Community School District tolerate that. And so we have been investigating last week and have now reached kind of a point in our investigation where we have some additional information, and we'll move forward with issuing some disciplinary action. And please understand that I have to protect confidentiality, and so I can't always tell you what it's going to be, but I can tell you a very, very significant disciplinary action will be issued, and it will be continued to be issued if our students or staff in any way, shape, or form contribute to race-based threats or intimidation. We just, as a district, we're better than that. So we will not participate in that. So I wanted that follow-up because I think sometimes letters go out and families think, man, I wonder if anything was ever done. And so please know that yes, something will be done and is being done.
Thank you for that update, Superintendent Reisner. The board planning calendar, I think what I'll highlight is our next meeting is June 29th. We've moved it. We will not have a meeting July 6th. We have moved it up June 29th so that so that our district staff can bring us their return to learn plan that they need to turn in July 1st. So that is whenever it will just be a regular meeting. There will not be a work session around that meeting. So anything else you want to highlight on the board planning calendar?
I don't think so. Thank you very much, Sabrina, for pointing that out, because I'm like, wait, it is the 9th or it isn't the 9th? So that equity committee meeting on the 7th. And other than that, I think there's not a lot more to point out on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for closed session, please.
I move the board go into closed session as provided in section 21.51I of the Open Meetings Law to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual has requested a closed session.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Colton. And this vote is on roll call, so I will say your name if you'll give me your vote. Franzen, aye. Perez?
Aye.
Linkaitis,
Aye.
Colton,
Aye.
Beerbaum,
Aye.
Bankin,
Aye.
Shields Cook.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. And board, we will go into, it's 8:09. At 8:15, we will go into closed session. So we could take a quick break. And then we will come back to this open session to adjourn. Just a reminder for the public.
Director Franson, did you get an email link did everybody?
Yeah, no, we've got that. Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
We do. Thank you for asking. So, yep. Okay. All right. Thank you.